Hello, welcome to Steven Shinder Reviews in video form. I am continuing my Little Planet of the Apes review series, particularly focusing on the live action TV series from 1974. Last time I talked about the first telefilm Back to the Planet of the Apes. So, to recap, in 1980 they re-aired pairs of these episodes edited together into these telefilms with these strange titles, and the second one is called The Forgotten City of the Planet of the Apes. Or does it have a the, or is it without the the? It's one of those, Forgotten City of the Planet of the Apes. It's one of those. Strangely, YouTube had the streaming rights to a few of these, but now I guess not anymore. Like, I guess a lot changed in the last couple of days. Like, this truly is the forgotten city of the Planet of the Apes now, I guess. But regardless, I still want to talk about that telefilm, the episodes within the telefilm, how they work as a pair, if at all, and what I think of them as, episodes overall. What do I think of the stories? And not gonna do a play by play, but just, talking about the themes, a few things that happen, and stuff like that. So, this telefilm, the second one, well, I should mention today is Roddy McDowell's birthday as of when I'm recording this, who played Galen, and of course in the films he played Cornelius and Caesar in the classic films, that is. And I don't think I mentioned last time that when these telefilms aired, they got Roddy McDowell to film these bookend things. Before and after the movie, you'd get footage of him as an aged Galen, sort of talking a little bit about the adventures, which is quite interesting that he was willing to do all that. He was just so tied to the franchise. So this second telefilm, Forgotten City of the Planet of the Apes, it includes the second and fifth aired episodes, which are The Gladiators and The Legacy, respectively. I read somewhere that The Legacy was the fourth one filmed, so I kind of wonder if maybe that's part of why it's the fourth in the order of these telefilms. But yeah, I think it would have made more sense for the first telefilm Back to the Planet of the Apes to have had Escape from Tomorrow and The Gladiators back to back, because we both have the magnetic disc, and at the beginning of The Gladiators, there's speculation about where they are geographically, and I feel like it's kind of weird to have that happen in the third shown story. Um, so yeah, and also just the title, Forgotten City of the Planet of the Apes. I feel like the episode The Trap, which is the third episode, which was included in Back to the Planet of the Apes and had them trapped in San Francisco underground. I feel like that could tie more into this title, and with the pair of episodes that do end up going here, The Gladiators and The Legacy. The Legacy has more to do with a ruined city, so I kind of feel like having The Trap and The Legacy back to back under Forgotten Cities, plural, of the Planet of the Apes would have tied in better as well. So I'm not the biggest fan of how these episodes are paired together. But that being said, I do think these two episodes in this telefilm are a bit better than the two that were in the first one. So in the Gladiators, we get to see this idea of there's this prefect chimp named Barlow, and he oversees these human gladiators. They train and they fight as gladiators in order to uh, take out their aggression. And it's quite a fascinating idea, and it's yeah, it leads into this discussion of, Burke and Verdon. They come from 1980 and they talk to the humans of this period, of the year 3085, about how there's no reason to kill, really, and they ask, well, do people kill for good reason in your time? I think there was a discussion like that, or maybe it made me think of that type of discussion. And it's this idea that no, lots of people still kill for no good reason, and it's something that still happens in our world today, and it's really thought provoking and really sad to think about the reality of that. And also this whole idea of like a gladiator has to die, and it's like there's no reason that people have to be killed. It's yeah. So I was really into the themes of this episode. There's also some interesting world building. In a moment in this episode, Galen talks about the fruit in the area, one of which is called an oper, and it looks like a bomb, feels like a banana, tastes like an orange, but to me it looks like a mango, so it probably was just a mango that the actor was eating there. Um, so yeah, but I do kind of like how the roots look kind of weird. They mentioned that it must be some sort of mutation, so I do kind of like the world building of the fruit here. And again, this episode has the magnetic disc in the forefront of the plot. It's the MacGuffin, and the MacGuffin that gets forgotten after this episode, funny enough. So, they keep trying to retrieve it and whatnot throughout this episode as it goes through different hands. And this magnetic disc is supposed to, it has all the flight information for these astronauts. So Verdon, who is the older of the two, he firmly believes that if they can get to a computer and run this magnetic disc through it, they'd get the navigational information that they need to, I guess, pilot a ship through the time warp that brought them here. And Burke, the younger of the two, because he's the younger of the two, I would think that or well, I've already seen these. I know what to expect from these characters, but I feel like generally people might think the younger character, especially maybe of this era when these aired, would be typically the more optimistic one, with the older person being the more cynical one. Think Luke Skywalker and Han Solo. Han is definitely the more cynical of the two in the original movie. Um, but so it's quite fascinating that Verdon feels more optimistic and Burke is kind of trying to be a realist. And I really like that dichotomy between these two. And Galen is learning more about these two humans. So yeah, I really liked the dynamic between the characters in this. But again, unfortunately, the magnetic disc is not important anymore after this episode. So I feel like if this show were made today, it would continue to be the thing to keep coming back to, and there'd be progress here and there. It wouldn't feel like they're just kind of wandering around a little aimlessly, even though they are solving some problems and whatnot. But I do like that they teach that lesson. The anti-killing lesson might come across as somewhat like too preachy to some people, but it's like, why kill? So then we get to the legacy. I'm trying really hard not to get these titles mixed up. So in a ruined Oakland, the fugitives, they find this hologram of a human scientist. I think he's a scientist who mentions that all the sum of human knowledge is within these vaults. And Galen, I love Galen's like expression, like how surprised he looks when he sees the hologram, because he has no idea what this is. Whereas Burke and Verdon, even though this hologram is from centuries after their time, maybe 500 years after their time or something, they have read science fiction. They are familiar with the idea of holograms, probably. And so when Galen is like, "Is that magic?" They have to explain it's technology from beyond their time. I also like how at the beginning of this, when they're running around, Galen is like exhaling. He's like super tired. He's like, I used to have a normal life, and now I'm on the run. And this scene always stuck with me. Sometimes it comes to mind whenever I'm feeling super tired after walking or running to a place for a long time. So yeah, again, props to Roddy McDowell and whatnot. Um, oh, I forgot to mention the previous episode. Barlow loses his prefect position because he is more like sympathetic to the humans. I think that's what happened. Like he gets some sort of demotion. But yeah, here in the legacy, um, we get like these other, Counselor Zaius and General Urko show up again, and they encounter this hologram and are bewildered by it, and they don't want like the human knowledge to be passed around, and so they're doing their best to prevent that. And there's like the printing of the paper, and trying to stop that and whatnot. But there's also this interesting storyline where there's this woman and this boy. The boy's actually played by young Jackie Earl Haley. I was really surprised to learn that today. Uh, and the boy keeps hearing, um, Verdon very much is passing down like stories of what it was like in their time, or talking about stuff that they're familiar with from their time. He plays with a toy airplane at some point, or at least one of the fugitives do, and the boy is like amazed by it. And the woman, I think her name is Arn, if I remember correctly. She used to have someone, but that now he's gone. And she talks about this farm that they used to be on, and how um, she's asked why don't you go back to the farm, and she's like, when you're alone, I think you don't want to be reminded of the time when you weren't alone. And it's like, wow, that really makes me think, how that could be kind of triggering in a way, going to a place that used to be so full of life and like not so much anymore. And that's kind of this show in general, right? Human civilization has fallen. It's been fallen for centuries. The humans are dominated by the apes. They can still speak, but they're not on top. Um, so yeah, it's, I don't know. There are just bits of dialogue here that really make me think, and you can tell she's kind of falling in love with Verdon. I like how the dialogue um, isn't too expositiony about it. Like you can just tell. And I know she just met him, but with the times being what they are in this era, and Verdon seeming like he's a good family man type of person, and we're learning a bit more about him in the series. What his life used to be like, uh, the people he misses. So, yeah, I quite liked the writing in this episode as well. Um, so yeah, like I said, the goofy title of these is kind of what throws me off a bit, and like the ordering of the episodes. So I think setting that aside, just looking at these as episodes, I think I'd give each of them an 8 out of 10. These two in particular, the Gladiators and the Legacy. I feel like the first telefilm in a way kind of felt like it was trying to cover ground that the first two films covered. In Escape from Tomorrow, it's the astronauts landing, so kind of like the original Planet of the Apes. And then in what's it called, The Trap, you got like the subway as a setting, which to me felt a bit more like Beneath the Planet of the Apes, albeit without the weird mutant stuff. But here in these two episodes, I feel like the show grows a bit beyond those bounds. I guess the hologram, visually could remind people of, the illusions made by mutants. But yeah, like I said, I quite like this show. I thought these episodes were thought provoking. And we'll see how I handle the show in the next vid. I know there are a couple more telefilms, and I might want to talk about the episodes that weren't telefilms. So that's something I'll have to figure out on my own whenever that happens. But yeah, thanks for tuning in to Steven Shinder Reviews in video form, and I'll see you all next time.